This is the first installment in a series of exhibition-related podcasts. Adjunct Curator of Architecture and Design, Doug Sprunt, leads us through the first half of Cameron Art Museum's newest exhibition, Gwathmey Siegel, Inspiration and Transformation. This is the first museum exhibition devoted to the work of Charles Gwathmey and Robert Siegel of the architectural firm Gwathmey Siegel and Associates Architects. This exhibition explores the relationship between art and architecture by addressing 8 projects, focusing primarily on 5 that represent major transitions in their 45-year practice.
We started a little bit earlier. We actually began to look at Charles Gwathmey and his parents, who were very interesting. His father was a social realist painter, and his mom was a photographer who worked for the New York League. And their work, once I saw it, was fascinating because it was apparent to me just how influential his parents' work had been on his strategy with regards to design. You know, the Cubist nature and kind of Cubist interest of Rosalie's photographs and Robert's paintings, and how that seemed to immediately translate into the way that Charles and his early projects, and then eventually Charles and Bob, were going about designing their buildings. So that became the, kind of the beginning of the work in researching the project. I asked Charles if there was any chance that he might have some childhood sketchbooks, work, drawings, paintings, whatever it might be. And magically, this scrapbook from his 11-year-old tour to Europe showed up, in which it's very apparent that he is, he's got an amazing eye with regards to what it is that he's seeing, and a amazingly intelligent way of putting all of these postcards and information together in a scrapbook. So Charles loaned us the scrapbook. Fortunately, he had it. And additionally, the Fulbright notebook that he put together in studying Le Corbusier's work in France and throughout Europe after he graduated from the Yale School of Architecture. So that really kind of established the beginning of the project. We looked at the scope of the work and thought that, if we could identify, say, 5 transitional projects within their career, that might be a good kind of group of work. What we saw was the very kind of committed and almost impassioned work that Charles, to begin with, and Charles and Bob did with residences, beginning in Long Island, of course, when Charles was on his own. Actually, I think while he was still working with Edward Larrabee Barnes. And his mother asked him to design a residence for her in Amagansett. And the residence is really magical. It's based on Corbusier's modulor, his system of proportioning. And it's a very reductive but elegant geometric study, and it's modern. It makes no bones about that. It was modern at a time when modernism was beginning to kind of pale or wane with regards to interest. Postmodernism was beginning to rear its head, and modernism was being questioned. What is the relevance of modernism? So anyway, Charles is off with the residence for his mom. I think he was designing it actually after he'd left Ed Barnes's office. And it is an immediate success. It gets a lot of attention in the press and in the architectural world, the academic world. And Charles's career is really established around that, exceptional commission. It's rare that a intern architect or a recently established architect gets a commission such as that, a trusting mother who's basically letting her son stretch his legs out, so to speak, in designing her house in whatever fashion he sees fit. And it's an intimate project. Obviously the relationship between Charles and his mother is very close, and is based on the inspiration that she is for him with regards to her work and maybe her direction with regards to his life. So it's a lovely project. To this day, it still has an amazing quality of being resonant with the place in which it's designed. There's a photograph in the show of the context of Amagansett at the time when the residence was built, back in the mid to late 60s. And it's a shot across the dunes where you just see the house in a very small fashion on the horizon. The dunes are wild, completely unmanicured, and unlike they are today. And the house is this almost austere, geometric composition, on the horizon, with telephone poles and telephone lines in the background. So it was the Amagansett that was. But even to this day, as developed and as manicured as Amagansett is, as the house still has this, I felt personally that it spoke more to what the spirit of the place of Amagansett is than I would say the majority of the other houses that are there now. So anyway, that house starts the show off, and it's from that house that Charles's career is established. Robert Siegel, who was also working at Edward Larrabee Barnes' office, and who Charles knew from the High School of Music and Art in Manhattan, where both Bob and Charles were students. He asks Bob to come to work for him, to become his partner, and they establish Gwathmey Siegel, and it's actually Gwathmey Siegel Architects. It's maybe even Gwathmey Siegel Henderson. Nonetheless, Bob and Charles are together, and they're practicing, and their career is really just kind of flipping right along. One of the projects that we have in the show that maybe describes us a little bit of a different, but I feel consistent arc of progression is Wig Hall, which was an intervention to an existing classical building at Princeton University, and that intervention is done in a very modernist Corbusian manner, and it's actually inserted within the interior of the building, which had been burned, and it is really a very sensitive but integrous intervention where I believe one can read the similarities between classical architecture and modern architecture with regards to understanding of geometry and the power of that kind of elemental understanding of geometry and the composition of architecture from it.